Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to teach you guys how to make a road handle. You may have noticed I've already got a road handle video on my channel, and I do. I made it a few years ago. In fact, it was one of my first videos that I made. However, this one's a little bit different. This one is entirely movable. So you'll use a attachment tab to attach this on. But let's start with this one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut out two strips of material. One, which you just saw me glue up, is cut and glue up, is the bonded leather, and that is 0.8 mil. And I'm going to be attaching that to some, in this case, calf skin, but you can use whatever you like. I can't remember what this one is, but it's 1.4 millimeter, and you do want it quite thick for this, just because it's got a different appearance. So we're going to cut that down, and I believe it's 5 centimeters wide. We're going to cut this strip to. So again, it's a 0.8 millimeter bonded leather and a 1.4 millimeter calf skin. Next, we're going to attach our pattern with some double-sided tape, and you can use your own pattern for this. I'm using my pattern, and send me an email or find me on Instagram if you want a copy of this pattern. I will make it available for sale. We're then going to cut out the sort of tab on the end of it, if you like. We're going to cut that out. Make sure that you don't take the pattern off the end of the leather after you've cut it. You want to keep it there because you want to pre-punch your stitching marks on this particular pattern. It just makes things a lot easier when you're done. So we're going to do that now and punch those stitching holes. Once you've cut it out, you want to skive the end down so that the end of the tab is skived to 0. You don't want any bonded leather on that. The cord we're using is a 7.5 millimeter thick cord, and we're going to use a pen mark all the way down the center. So we're going to draw a pen mark all the way down and attach our 7.5 millimeter cord with some glue, which we're going to put down in a second. So we want to mark that because it's going to be a bit long at the moment. You want to paint, crease and paint where I'm showing here, because you won't be able to get to it once it's stitched together. This will be where the D loop is or whatever you're attaching. So I'm just using some black edge paint, but you can use whatever color you like. And we're also going to paint the inside of that curve as well, because you may catch a glimpse of it when you use the handle, and if you do, you don't want to see any of the bonded leather. So we're going to actually go ahead and we're going to put glue on just that pen line all the way down the center, and we're going to put glue on just one side of the leather cord, which is I think I said it already, but it's 7.5 millimeter thick. If you use a thinner cord, you'll want to adjust the pattern accordingly. So before we actually put the cord on, we want to punch the holes on both sides. Now this will depend on what pattern you use. If you use my pattern, the lines are marked on there. If you use your pattern, you'll have to figure that out yourself. So we're going to place that cord down, making sure that it's nicely centered on the pattern itself, because when it comes to folding it and wrapping the leather around the cord, it'll be much easier to do if it's attached right down the center, which is why that pen mark comes in. So we're now going to cut the cord down to length, and we want it to be at the end of the taper. As you can see there, I'm drawing a line across the cord because we want to skive it down to the thickness of your particular hardware. So if you're using a 2 millimeter thick piece of hardware, you want this skive to be down to that, because it's really important for how it comes together in the end, that skive is exactly the thickness of your hardware. It makes it look much more professional at the end, because if you scale it down to 0, you'll have a big floppy bit, which you don't really want. So now we've skived it, we can go ahead and we can glue the rest of the handle. I'm using a contact adhesive. It's essentially 1816B. I've moved to that one now, but it's made by EcoSar, and it's called 16PIU, if you want to know. Take your time and put lots of glue down the sides, because this is what will hold it together. This is what will hold it together whilst you're stitching it. So yes, it's not actually relevant for the final piece, but it's really helpful to have a good strong adhesive there for when it's being stitched. You'll see in a second that I'm actually going to wrap some thread around the last hole, and that is to again keep the end, which tends to separate, together while you're stitching it, because it will come apart. There's quite a lot of tension going through trying to pull apart the leather on each end. So I am wrapping that with some thread. It doesn't matter what thread you use, just whatever you've got lying around. So yeah, just wrap that through there, pull it really nice and tight. You might need to do a couple of loops, and then take some clamps, I'm not sure what you call these actually, but take some pliers, some leatherwork pliers, and really crank down on that, really squeeze it tight so that you get a nice seal. Now when you're actually stitching it together, because you'll need that last stitch, you'll want to take one end of the wrap that we've done out, but only the end. You want to only remove the end that you've wrapped, that you're starting with, because obviously the other end will be left alone for like 20 minutes whilst you're stitching it. I actually really enjoy stitching this. It's nice to stitch with a thicker thread for once. So this is a 0.55. It's quite thick for what I normally do, and it's satisfying to use a thicker thread for once. I'm not sure why, but it is. So now we've gotten to the end. This part's actually really crucial for the way we're going to do this, so I'll talk you through it. We will obviously want to stitch all the way to the end, as we normally would, and then we want to stitch 3 back stitches. So we want to snip that the wrap off, stitch to the end, and stitch 3 more back up, because that will keep the end together really nice and tight. Okay, so we're going to do that 3 stitches back up. Whilst I'm going back up, I just want to remind you guys, if you're enjoying this, to like and subscribe. But also, I have a Patreon available now, so I'll leave a link to that down below. So the first thing we're going to do is go into the last stitch, which is the round hole we punched, and we're going to pull that through to the stitch on the pointy end, and then we're going to stitch down and then back up. So this will take a little finagling. It's a bit annoying when you start doing it, I'll be honest. It's quite tedious, but you want to make sure not to pull those threads too tight to begin with. I should have mentioned earlier, when you're stitching the entire thing, actually, don't do any casting and pull directly outwards, perpendicular to the stitches, because you've prick marked both all the way through, because you've prick marked and it's stitched all the way through, and the stitches are essentially reversed, they're reversed on each side, you don't want to cast because you'll get a completely flat stitch and it won't look very nice. So we're going to stitch all the way down. Normally, if you've watched my videos before, and thank you so much if you have, I normally do an overstitch at the end of all of my stitching runs, but we're not going to do that today because when we're finishing up the edges, we actually want to be able to sand all the way to the end. I don't do it in this video just because I think I might actually, you might see it later. When you sand all the way to the end to smooth it out, if you've overstitched it, you'll always have a little bit of a bumpy area at the end that you can't sand all the way to. So bear in mind that's why I haven't stitched all the way, overstitched it, because you really want to get that edge nice and smooth if you're putting this on your bag or whatever piece it is that you're making, not just as a learning experience. So as we go back up, we actually do a funny little thing. We go to the last hole, which is where I'm trying to get my awl into now, and we go through that hole, and then we come back down again. It's a bit strange. So we go up twice, and then we go back down the other side. And the reason for that is because when you're using your handle, it actually puts a lot of tension into this particular area of the handle. So you want to go up one and then back down, and then you'll need to pass your needle back into the middle. And the way that this has happened is it's actually the opposite needle, because you've gone up and then you've come back down, and the amount, if you go up I think it's 2 stitches and then back into the little V shape that we're doing at the moment, you'll have flipped over your threads, which is one of the reasons it makes it really nice and strong. So that's that. We're all stitched up. So because we can't hammer into this area, you want to take a bone folder and press all the threads down. I'm actually going to use scissors to cut off the excess. It's 3mm from the stitching line. But if you don't feel comfortable using scissors for this particular part, please do go ahead and use a very sharp knife, because it is a lot of leather. 2.4 times 2, because obviously it's all folded in half, plus the 0.8. Here we go, you can see me sanding it. So that's why you don't want to overstitch it, because you're sanding it right up to where the loop is. Before you paint this or burnish it in whatever case you're using, tie some thread around it and pull that really tight so that it puts a bend into the handle. And the reason we're doing that is because if you paint it straight and then try and put that bend in, which obviously handles have, the paint will crack or it will ripple, because you're putting quite a lot of tension into it as you're pulling that around. So tie it, let it settle for a few minutes, and then paint it. I'm not letting it settle for this because this is a video, but tie it, and then it will essentially reshape itself with the pressure of the thread. I'm using a polyester thread here. You can't get golden linen, because if you tried to do that with linen, I think it would probably snap. You could also use like a piece of string or a well, whatever you like, really, just something that's really, really strong to pull that together. But thank you guys so much for watching. I do really hope you enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed making it, as I do with all of my videos. I post twice a week and shorts pretty much every day. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Click that bell button and make sure to follow me on Patreon if you want to help support the channel. I'll see you soon. Take care.